Back in 2021, I made a short documentary about the Silures tribe in South Wales. I was working on a budget of nothing, getting what shots I could, when I could, of Silures related origin. I was filming and scripting whilst working 50 hours a week, and only filming between lockdowns at the time. I pieced together a very rough documentary from nothing. The Silures tribe fascinate me, because although they are recorded by the Romans as being fierce, swarthy warriors with moustaches, it's difficult to know anything about them. What was it actually like to be a Silurian tribesman on a day-to-day basis? And most importantly, why did they see themselves as different from their neighbouring tribes, and what was different about them? Some of the tribes from ancient Britain we know about, the Catu Velauni, the expert warriors, the Picti, the painted ones, and the Ordovices of Mid Wales, whose name is thought to mean something like the hammer wielders, and evidence of the Ordovices' existence can be found in the place name of Dinorwic in North Wales, which means the fort of the Ordovices, although they probably had many other forts. To my knowledge, the name of the Silures remains undeciphered, so in this video I'm going to try my best to decipher it. Before I go any further, I want to say that I am not a historian, I am not a linguist, I'm not an archaeologist or historical expert. I have not been trained in the methods to identify these things. I am just an enthusiast on YouTube fascinated by my country's past. So, an important thing to keep in mind is that although the Silures inhabited South Wales, they probably wouldn't have seen it that way. Before the Romans arrived, the idea of unified kingdoms or provinces more or less didn't exist. And if you had said to the Silures, you live in De Cymru, South Wales, they wouldn't have a clue what you mean by De Cymru. The Romans would eventually come to call the peninsula of Wales Britannia Secundum, which means the secondary Britain or Britain inferior, which probably is more related to the size of the peninsula rather than the people being inferior. Before the Romans conquered Britain, Britain and the Celtic or Brythonic tribes here were trading with the Roman world and the wider Celtic world, especially along the western sea routes, which has led to the Celts from the West hypothesis, which puts the origins of Celtic culture in Britain, expanding eastwards via trade, rather than the old view of Celts from the east, where warlike people conquered and slaughtered their way into Britain. That probably did happen to some extent, but I would be surprised if it was the sole cause. So, I have a few ideas where we might find the origins of the Silures. Does the name describe where they came from? Does it describe something about them, or does it describe what they do? I'm aware that Britain was very sparsely populated at this time, but another thing that I have a hard time grasping is that all of the people in the area would have seen themselves as Silures. South Wales is a relatively large area for Britain and has difficult geography to traverse by foot or riverboat. I believe the Silures were just the dominant tribe in the area when the Romans arrived, and that it's more likely that each valley or groups of valleys would have had their own tribe or clan, something like Scotland. Geography often shapes culture. Take, for example, the Balkans, which is home to so many different cultures, or the early Greek states, lots of cultures inhabiting a small area. So, two things to discuss, the origin of the name and the origin of the tribe. So I've called my first idea Silure, because it's a catchy name and I needed a title. So I based this off the idea that Silures was mispronounced. Maybe the Romans had a hard time saying the name. So let's go with that idea that the Silures was maybe meant to be pronounced as Kilur or Kilures. In modern Welsh, the word keel can mean a few things. It can mean a corner, an eclipse, a nook, or to retreat. It's important to realise that the suffix es, s, is added by the Romans who spoke Latin. The s, according to Wikipedia, is used to form third declension nouns, most of which have senses along the lines of one who goes by. And the example given is that equus, meaning horse, changed to eques, means cavalryman, or knight, or equestrian. Using this analogy, assuming the meaning of keel has never changed, and using the instance where keel means to retreat, perhaps the Silures should have been the keeler, which means the ones that retreat, owing to their guerrilla style of warfare. I should point out, if you were to call someone a keeler, it would mean a person who retreats. Upon having the idea for this video, I did some research as to the possible explanations of the Silures name. And just about the only thing I could find was this: a document from the Government Wales website that describes the Silures as being the people of the rocks, owing to the geography that they lived in, but it offers no explanation of how they've interpreted the name. When I looked up what Sil meant in Latin, the result that I got was Sil was defined as meaning woods or forest, close to Sylvan or Sylvanian, which, if you do use the word Sil and assume it hasn't changed, would also make sense because it would mean the people of the woods, as South Wales would have likely been heavily wooded at this time. My only issue with continuing with the Latin idea is that the Demetae gave their name to Dyfed. The continuation of the name would suggest it was not a name the Romans gave them, but rather a name they gave themselves. There is also the possibility that it's a name that people from another tribe of Britain gave them, and the Romans had the name from informants. In language, it's not uncommon for words to change meaning over time. Take the word girl in English, which didn't used to mean female or female child. It used to be a gender-neutral word for a child. Or the word naughty, which didn't used to mean flirty or bad. It used to mean more or less poor. It meant to come from naught, from nothing. So I'm proposing that Kiel, at least in some cases, may have been a place that the Silures had a settlement or associated with. As I previously have said, in North Wales there is a place called Dinorwig, which is theorised to mean the fort of the Ordwyches. And the area of Wales now known as Dyfed gets its name from the ancient tribe the Demetae. So using the previous idea that Silures came from Kilor, we might be able to find some clues using maps as to where the Silures inhabited. I will admit that this one is a bit of a stretch, and I'm sure my fellow Welsh language nerds will challenge me on this. This is an internet database of every historical find in Wales. It's called Archwilio. It's free to use, I use it often. Google Maps can be unreliable when trying to find ancient place names, as it's primarily a tool for navigation. So, using Archwilio, which will show me every find associated with a place name that I want, I search the word Kiel. So going first to Dyfed Archaeology Trust and searching Kiel, we can see that there are some results in the Cambrian Mountains and west of the Banau Brycheiniog and in the Preseli Mountains. Searching Gwynedd Archaeology Trust, there are a few results towards the south of Eryri, but nothing major. Then if we search Powys Clwyd Archaeology Trust, there are even less results. But if we search the term in Glamorgan Gwent Archaeology Trust, we get a massive result, with concentrations along Gower and Merthyr Tydfil Caerphilly area. I should cover my own backside by pointing out that the search term did yield some results that included Sil from the word council, but those are a very small share of the results, mostly owing to old council schools. An interesting thing to note is the correlation to places with a Roman fort, as you can see on this map. Because you don't just put a Roman fort anywhere, you put it near a place where there's a population to suppress. Another thing, if you search the term Kilor into Archwilio, it comes up with only one result: a medieval farm between Cwmbran and Usk called Kilorgi. And I could find no direct translation for this name. And my best guess, using my second language knowledge of Welsh, is that Gi means dog, and perhaps if my theory is correct about the Kilor refers to the Silures, so maybe the dog of the Silures, or the Silures dog. Another interesting thing is that the Kilorgi farm is only about 15 miles from Llanmelin Hill Fort, which is thought to be the capital of the Silures near Caerleon, which the Romans would later build a settlement called Venta Silurum. So, to wrap up, I would just like to say, I'm aware these theories aren't airtight, but I think it's a fun topic to debate, and if you have any further comments to add, or knowledge you might want to share about the topic, please comment below. Thank you.